Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Surface skimmers, snorkelers and deep divers alike of the technical news world, that is, this is your heads up. It's time for you to come up for air. Welcome to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Now, in today's episode, we're all about the sensations. Robotic super smellers are on their way and they're going to keep us alive for longer while they're at it. Now, coming out of Japan is a new flavour of ice cream that won't leave your arm all sticky. And look out this Halloween, Ultra Skelly is coming to scare your collective pants off. But before we get into all that, we probably should bring our resident expert to the microphone. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you. And I just got a little story this week about a group of people that I spoke to who gave me one of those classic stories that everyone has a bit of a laugh at, but it's real. And this is what's happening in today's society.
Is it at someone's expense, is it?
Well, it's not really at someone's expense, except there is a lesson in all of this.
Right.
I was giving a talk about anti-scam, about cybersecurity, about a whole range of things to be safe online. And someone put their hand up and said they had a friend, maybe it was them, but they had a friend, as they said the story, that was convinced, absolutely convinced they were in a relationship with Kevin Costner. Now, Kevin Costner, well-known actor, done some wonderful movies over the time.
And they met him online.
Oh,
right. Okay.
And this friend was saying, I'm not convinced you're in a relationship with Kevin Costner. You're an 80-year-old woman. Do you think Kevin really would want to be in a relationship? And apparently he was going to fly his private jet to Australia, come out and visit this particular lady, and then take her to Queensland. Not sure why Queensland, but take her to Queensland for a holiday. She was pretty excited about all of this. Mm-hmm. And her friend was trying to convince her that maybe this wasn't right. Have you spoken to him? Because obviously most of the information will be on text. Yeah. She said, yes, I have. And I know Kevin's voice. And it was Kevin. I know it was Kevin. So they've gone past texting. They've gone past sending a few old photos. Here's me.
Making phone calls out of the blue. Hi, this is Kevin Costner. I'm just wondering if you wanted to go start up a relationship with me.
I'm not sure how he picked this particular lady out of all the millions of ladies that Kevin could probably have his choice of.
Yeah, right.
And I said, it's okay as long as she didn't hand over any money. And, of course, she said, well, yes, she did. $3,000.
The love game is a cruel one, isn't it?
It is. And I said, so what did Kevin need $3,000 for? What particular circumstance in his life? And I just quickly picked up my phone and said, net worth Kevin Costner, and it came up with about $250 million. Yeah. And I said, Kevin's worth about $250 million. What did he need $3,000 from this lovely lady, 80-year-old lady, to give to Kevin? What was that for? And she said, well, he said he was just between movies and needed a bit of cash to tide him over. So I said, please tell me it wasn't paid in Bitcoin, but it was almost paid in Bitcoin. It was in Woolworths. Now, no, this is nothing where Woolworths have done anything wrong. In Woolworths gift cards. So I'm picturing Kevin Costner sitting in a lovely home, maybe in the Hollywood Hills. I don't know where Kevin lives. And he's going, I've got to fly to Australia in my private jet to meet up with this lovely lady. Yeah. And I just need $3,000 worth of Woolworths vouchers. Because, well, I don't know, you pay for your fuel at the airport with Woolworths gift cards. I'm not sure. So she bought $3,000 worth of Woolworths gift cards. She took photos of the back of them with the number on there, with the pin and the number, and sent them off to Kevin in inverted commas. And Kevin didn't show up. Kevin was never to be heard from again. Must have had a scheduling conflict. Maybe he got a late movie. How could that happen? Now, everyone in the room was laughing about this. And I said, we are all laughing about this, and as you say, maybe at the expense of this particular lady. But the sad part is people fall for this. They're very good.
Particularly in the love game.
Exactly right. So we're all laughing and saying, this is obviously Kevin with $250 million, doesn't need $3,000. Why is he going to fly to Australia?
She's heard his voice, and it sounds like Kevin Costner.
That's it. And so my point from all of this when I spoke to this group was they're very good. The social engineering they use, the psychology they use is very good to convince this lady.
The exploitation of weakness.
That's right. Even when he didn't show when he said he was going to show, she still wasn't convinced Kevin wasn't coming. So this friend said her solution was to ring this woman's husband. I said, hold on, a husband? I didn't know about a husband. So she was ready to ditch the husband and take off with Kevin in the private jet and forget about the husband. And the husband actually said, I've noticed some money missing from a bank account. I was a bit concerned that something had happened. I was going to talk to the bank, but thank you for letting me know. And obviously going to talk to his wife and say, are you chasing Kevin, are you? But this is how good they are. And I suppose the warning is we think that's a silly story and we won't fall for it. But, gee, people do fall for these stories. It's so easy to fall for them.
Goodness me. Well, look, enough of this jibber-jabber. Let's get stuck into the latest of laptops. Now, have you ever had that first world problem where a photo that you were trying to view on your laptop just wouldn't fit neatly on your screen? All you needed was just another 2 inches of height on the screen and you'd be cooking with gas with a full photo screaming back at you there. Well, Lenovo got... It's Lenovo, not Livono. Lenovo got wind of rollable screen technology. We've talked about that in the past and heard the sad news of your plight with the big pictures and all. So, Matt, we're now living in an age where laptops come with rollable screens.
I love the concept. And I'm just going to go back a little bit and just give us a bit of a quick history snapshot here of screens. If we go back to the 1930s, CRT, cathode ray tube screens were all the go. Big,
classic.
Yeah, big, chunky, heavy screens. And typically, because of the angle that the electrons were shot out from the tube at the back onto the phosphor-coated screen, typically, not perfectly, but roughly, the size of the screen, the diagonal size of the screen was almost about the same depth. So when you had a 21-inch screen, you might have had a 20-inch depth screen. They got a bit better and they had a better angle of deflection as time went on, but it still got to the stage where if you had a big TV, it had a fair bit of depth about it as well.
Yeah.
And so they were big furniture pieces. And those were the common screens through till almost the 2000s when you had these beautiful little LCD, LED, OLED, AMOLED, all these screens started to come out through probably the 1980s and 1990s when they all started to come out, where obviously got much thinner and significantly better technology. It was a bit the same with notebooks. If you go back to the early 80s, you had monochrome LCD screens on those first notebooks.
Those.
And they were green for some reason, or black in terms of the visuals on there.
Well, green was probably easiest because cathode rays glow green, as I think is the easiest colour for them to...
Well, I'm intrigued by that because they were LCD, so I'm not sure why they would be.
LCD screen. Sorry, my apologies.
Those very first ones.
Yeah, right. No, I'll back off, And
I remember selling some of those.
Maybe it was just what we were used to.
Who knows? It might have been. But
with the old cathode.
Those very first notebooks, I can remember selling one. It was huge amounts of money. It might have been $10,000 back in 1990 money or something. Yeah. And I remember selling one going, wow, I hope one day I can afford one of these because, wow, but they were terrible. You looked at them and they were absolutely terrible. Big, chunky, heavy things. But maybe it was, as you say, the CRT screens they had were green. So maybe
because I was thinking about the desktops that we had. And so maybe it was just trying to mimic that.
Yeah, that's right. So we've had those. And then we also had, of course, the phones where you had the old Motorola brick phone, which had the single line LED display, which basically you scrolled off the edge of the screen when you're typing in a phone number. It wasn't big enough to maintain all of that. Now you've got foldable curved screens and all sorts of wonderful screens on our phones. So when you come to screens that we look at, whether it be notebooks or TVs, we did the story a little while ago, a couple of years ago now, where LG had a rollable OLED TV. So it looked like a rectangular container that sat on a benchtop somewhere in your lounge room, presumably, and you press the button and out roll the screen, and then you finish watching it roll back away.
Yeah.
Fantastic technology.
Yeah.
But in something so portable. So this is where Lenovo have gone now.
Yeah.
And I absolutely appreciate this because when I travel, I'm at the stage now, I've got a 16-inch notebook. I keep contemplating an 18-inch notebook, but I think, it's just too much to carry. So I use a 16-inch notebook, but when I travel and I sit in a motel room, I go, it's just not enough screen real estate. So I travel with a second portable monitor. It's another 16-inch screen that I set up beside it. So at least I can still have two monitors, not as big as on my desk, but at least have two monitors. So that's quite nice. And I saw this concept and I went, that's not bad. So it starts off as a 14-inch OLED display, 2,000 by 1,600 pixels. You hit a button, about 8 seconds later, it grows into a 2000 by 2350 screen. So it grows in height. So not a traditional 16:9 format that you'd normally expect to see on a screen on a notebook. But having said that, it's more screen real estate. And that's what you're always after as you travel. This is the first iteration of that. Now, it's a silent motor. It does it fairly quickly. It's a little bit heavier than a normal 14-inch notebook, but not too bad. But just having that technology where the screen rolls up, then in my mind, I start to think, well, it's really only limited by how much space you can have to roll up a screen and how tight you can roll that. So maybe we build up a bit bigger screen at the back of it and we end up with this huge vertical screen that pops out. Maybe it goes up and then out as well, but the first one, not too bad.
My mind's boggling right here with the possibilities. But, having a really, really tall screen, just having a tall screen, that'd be weird, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be. And I know when I've had multiple monitors in office situations for different clients, sometimes they will turn them portrait mode rather than landscape. We're normally used to seeing our computers in landscape mode. Yeah. But sometimes they've gone, well, I'm going to put 2 or 3 on my desk. I'll put them all in portrait mode. And if you're looking at a Word document, for example, it's normally in portrait mode.
Yeah, so you'd be able to see the whole page.
Exactly right. So
nice and large.
It's not the end of the world if you have it that way. But if you can roll it vertically, why couldn't you roll it horizontally? Why couldn't you roll it both? So I just think the possibilities now, as with anything, they start with one, they see how that goes, they see if it sells well. And in general, this particular notebook is a good high-spec notebook, reasonable priced, a little bit heavier than normal, but a notebook that people would just choose to buy regardless. And then the extra feature, it's pretty cool. And then we go from there. So
Surprise. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this really takes off.
Yeah. We're rolling out the future. I think it's quite
there it is. Now we're so close, Matt. We are so close. Robotic engineers in China have unveiled their version of Rosey the robot from the Jetsons, and we can now leave our dirty socks wherever they land. Is that right? We've been holding out for this for a long time. Did you bring the party poppers, Matt?
Oh, look, it's almost there. And it's interesting. They've gone for a process where they've said everyone's trying to make a humanoid robot, maybe to make us feel a little bit better, maybe to make us feel like there's something that looks a bit like us. And these particular researchers in China have said, forget about that. It probably looks more like a mop and bucket than a humanoid, which is okay. I don't really care what it looks like. And there's a few limitations.
Dirty socks.
Yeah, that's right. There's a few limitations. I think the really important part about this process is they've said, let's work on practicality rather than how it looks. And we know we've seen some other robots, Tesla in particular, where they had some robots going around at a conference, and of course they were controlled by
just
a human.
Remote controlled.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they weren't really what we want, but they look good. They look fantastic. And these particular researchers have said, no, let's just have something that does stuff that is useful. Now, the first thing they did is they said, we can't have this just go anywhere. We've got to have a map. So you've got to map out your home.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. It's a bit like lawnmowers, robotic lawnmowers or autonomous lawnmowers. First thing you do is put a wire around the edge of the lawn. I'm okay. I'm okay spending an hour doing that for then never to have to mow the lawn again. I'm okay with a map of my home to say, here's the map, here's where the walls are, please don't go through them. There's a doorway, that'd be preferable to go through that way. And once you've got that map, then essentially it uses some depth cameras and some actual cameras and a 3-wheel system. So 2 independent steering wheels and the third wheel's for balance because obviously it's a bit easier because there's a lot of work trying to make a humanoid robot stand up.
A lot of work, yeah.
So let's give up on that. Let's just say for the moment, let's just have wheels. Now, Rosey, of course, had 1 wheel from memory. That's a bit tricky too. That's like a Segway balancing on 1 wheel. Let's give this robot 3 wheels. I'm okay because it can balance easier and can get around. So 3 wheels and then it works out what to do. Now, what does it do? How can it actually help us? Well, it can actually help us picking up stuff off the ground. So it can go around and pick up materials that are left. It can do the mopping. It can do the vacuuming. And probably in terms of what else it can do, can't mix you a cocktail, can't go and cook dinner for you. It's really just taking care of a few basics at this stage. And I think the real focus here is a practical solution at the level that we're at now.
Yeah.
So we can dream about someone sitting there polishing our toenails, cooking dinner for us, bringing us a beer from the fridge, but that's a long way off. In practical terms, this is kind of where we're at the moment, something that can pick up a few things, do a few basic tasks and help us around the house rather than completely replace the kids picking up the rubbish and putting all the things in the washing machine and the clothes dryer, etc.
As you say, it's a start.
It's a start.
If you're wondering what you're going to buy Matt for Christmas.
That's right, exactly right. One thing they do talk about in this is that they're saying we think we're past just a robotic vacuum cleaner. We think we're at the stage where we can do a few functions, but don't get too excited about lots of functions. So can't quite buy it yet, but we're getting closer.
Don't get too excited, but get a little bit excited.
A little bit, yes.
Now, forget facial recognition. AI now has the capacity to recognise people from a mere dot on the landscape, a couple of pixels no less, from what you were wearing, much less than the distinctive features of a face. Matt, this is an amazing story of AI scanning some drone footage of a search in the Italian Alps.
Yeah, that's right. Now, unfortunately, the story didn't start that well because the person who was lost was no longer with us, and the family had come to that conclusion, and the search and rescue team, because it was September last year, September 2024, where this particular person, 64-year-old Italian hiker, had gone missing. He'd gone missing off the north face of the tallest peak in Italy's Cottian Alps. So they kind of realised that he was no longer with us. They looked for mobile phone footage, or not footage, but mobile phone location, geolocation with mobile phones to see where he was, and they sent out search and rescue teams at the time and couldn't find him. But they'd narrowed it down to a mere 183 hectares. That's a fair bit of space to search. That's right. And you send out helicopters, you send out humans, you're going to be searching that kind of area for a long period of time. So they'd more or less given up and said, sorry, we know we can't find him. End of story. We'll have to go back and look for him, or someone will find him at some particular point in time. Then some researchers came up with the idea of using AI and drone footage to see whether or not they could find people, in this case find someone, just find their body, give a bit of closure to the family. So they sent out a drone and it took 2,600 images from a height of 50 metres. Now, at that height, you're getting pretty good resolution. Sure, we've got satellites. We've got low Earth orbit satellites taking photos of us right now as we're sitting here, James, but they just haven't got that resolution. They're probably sitting at 400 kilometres above the Earth. And in the movies, of course, they've got the enhance image button, but that's not
that's
real.
Not a real. Yeah.
That's right. So you're not going to be able to pick up enough detail to try and find a human, one human in the Alps from satellite footage. So they sent out a drone 50 metres above the Earth, obviously very high resolution of the ground, and 2,600 images. We sit down for an afternoon with the family. You know, we're going to be there for a few afternoons. We're going to be there for a long time, and we're humans. We might miss that little bit, that little difference that might be there, but throw this task to AI. And we give AI a hard time sometimes, but we're always looking for good stories about AI. And this is a story where AI was basically showing that, and in one afternoon, fed those 2,600 images, AI said, have a look at image number 1725. There's some red pixels there that look out of character with the surrounding scenery.
Yeah, right.
So then humans looked at that. They then got a better image of that. Within 3 days, they found this particular gentleman who, again, as we know, had been no longer with us for some months, but the red pixels of his helmet stood out as being just a little bit different to the rest of the pixels in the landscape. So at least they were able to find him, they were able to bring his body home, and the family been able to bury him. But that's a sad ending to a story, but we've got the technology now. So the next time someone goes missing in the Italian Alps or wherever, we know we've got drones that we can send out and say, find some pixels that are different, find something that's different. And if you can do it in an afternoon, we've got a pretty good chance of finding this person, as long as they haven't had a fall or they haven't been bitten by a snake and already died. Then if they're out there just waiting to be rescued, we've got a pretty good chance of rescuing them with this technology.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is
Absolutely.
amazing. So it's getting better all the time, and I think we will see drones used for a whole range of things like this, and I think there'll be expertise in terms of the companies producing these drones, expertise where they'll be advertising their drone products as being able to do this sort of thing. So quite a good story, a good outcome in the long run for all of us.
Now, stealing inspiration from the hit series Game of Thrones, the US Forest Service are dropping dragon eggs from drones hovering above the woodlands of the western states in a bid to manage controlled burns. Now, Matt, drones dropping incendiaries, what is the advantage here?
It does seem strange, doesn't it? You want to start a fire, send a drone out to start the fire.
Yeah, well, you would think that, someone could go out and start a fire wherever you wanted to go, but maybe this is about accessibility and efficiency.
Maybe getting some people out of jail that are in jail because they've lit too many fires, maybe get them out there, but maybe they'll go crazy with it. But I think we actually went off a little while, didn't we, doing back burning? We thought maybe this is bad burning.
Well, back burning's different to control burning for, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the fuel reduction burning.
Yeah. No, I always thought back burning was a bit the same, where you just go out.
Back burning is happening while you're doing the fire.
Oh, okay.
While the fire is burning. You're trying to make a fire break by burning back towards the fire.
Yep.
Whereas the hazard reduction, but that's the word I was looking for.
Right.
Hazard reduction burning is where you're going in the winter or low burn seasons and reducing.
Well, my mistake, I probably used back burning incorrectly then, because
perhaps they're doing it for both. It's just controlled burning, isn't it?
It's controlled burning, but they're doing it in the off season.
Yeah.
Because I thought we did go off it for a little while. I thought we went, no, we should leave nature and we should let all that beautiful undergrowth keep growing, and then the next bushfire or wildfire, I think as they call them in the US, then went so crazy. We went, maybe that idea of hazard reduction was a better idea.
Yeah.
So I think we've gone back now to say, let's do some hazard reduction burning, because that means there's less fuel there. And of course, you can do it in winter. You can do it when there's no wind for that day. You can do it when you've got the fire crews ready to go. But of course, lighting the fires, in the past, they've either sent helicopters in, which are expensive, and you've got humans on board, so there's always a bit of risk there.
Yep.
Or you send in people on the ground level to go and start them, and suddenly you can have a change in weather and people are there on the ground and, oh my gosh, they've got the wind turned back onto us now. So they've come up with this idea of using drones, and they're calling them dragon eggs, which basically is a plastic ball filled with potassium permanganate, which ignites when mixed with ethylene glycol.
Yeah.
So I assume what they do is they put those two together in the one dragon egg, drop them, and then when they drop, they basically combine, and that starts a low temperature burn. And so they basically drop those in an area, and they can send out a drone to drop about 450 eggs over about 3 or 4 minutes in one mission. They set up that, run that around the area they want to burn, and then sit back there, and they haven't got this high intensity burn. They're getting rid of some of that fuel that's built up, and then the next fire season comes along and they go, well, thank goodness we got rid of all of that hazard there. We've reduced all that, and now our fire isn't going to be as vicious. So doing it in that way, I think, is the idea, is just to keep it safer. And I did read somewhere where it was about 25% of all firefighting deaths are related to aviation. So whether you're up there fighting the fire or up there dropping something to try and start a fire, to do some burning in the off season, there's all that risk, because you've got people up in the air, helicopters, planes, and there might be smoke around. You can't see what you're doing. So sending a drone up, and if a drone goes wrong, we go, well, we lost a drone. We didn't lose some people. Yeah. And they're expensive drones. The drones they're using for this are worth about $150,000 Australian. So they're expensive drones, and they're carrying a fair payload. So that's about 6 kilos they're carrying when they're carrying all those eggs. But again, I'd rather lose $150,000, or maybe I can repair it when it crashes, rather than a human on something.
And I guess drones can access areas where humans might find it much more difficult to access as well. So
that's a good point too. Yeah. So send them out there. And I imagine you'd still have some firefighters on the ground ready, just to make sure that it does stay contained within an area. But I think we're learning more about fires every season, and there's so much more data. I've been to a fire control centre when a bushfire is going, and just the amount of data and the amount of overlays they put on giving different information, we're learning more about them every day. So I think working out ways to try and stop it for the future is quite clever. So drones, we're just finding more and more things
laying
we can do with
dragon
drones.
eggs.
Yeah, laying dragon eggs.
And, of course, we're still on the subject of drones here. When it comes to modern warfare, make no mistake, drones are the new black. In the war in Ukraine, both sides are using them extensively. One limitation, though, has been up to this point in the life of the battery. But that's now changing with solar cells that are now employing both technologies and helping out, in war zones, Matt.
Yeah, they do. And they're using these for ambush drones. And it's a little bit like a landmine, but a landmine is a terrible thing. We know about landmines around the world, terrible thing. But also a lot of risk burying the landmines for a start. And then that's it. They're in that one place. So you might capture that land or take back that land, and then you've got your own landmines to deal with. What they're doing with drones, and this is both sides in the Ukraine war at the moment, but what they're doing with drones, they're using them as an ambush drone, where they'll send a drone in and they'll leave it sitting somewhere ready to be used in some sort of attack. Now, it might not be the next day. It might not be the next week. It might be several months down the track. And you've got a couple of problems. For a start, you've got to use some battery power to get it to that place in the first place.
Yeah.
So you might have used half your battery power to get it there, and then it sits there and waits. And batteries, depending on the type of battery they've got and a whole range of variables, it probably loses maybe 5% of its charge per month, maybe that sort of vicinity, just doing nothing. If it's completely turned off, doing nothing. But how do you know it's ready to launch unless you actually access that drone and maybe have a look at what it can see, maybe have a look at when it's the right time to attack. So they do like to access the cameras on those drones. And, of course, that uses up a little bit of power, not anywhere near as much as flying it, but you might have all these things in place and then you're finally ready to go and you go, oh, I got 5% battery left. So
battery power.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the normal answer to why don't you put solar panels on a drone is because of surface area, the same old question we give many times to many science questions. And if you tried to fly a drone being powered by solar panels, then there's no way the surface area of the drone, a normal drone, would have enough power to keep it going. But sitting there and waiting for a day, a week, a month, you can keep the battery topped up. But also it would mean you could access the camera, you could access sensors on it to have a look around, and the solar panels on there would probably be enough just to keep that going because the motors are what's going to use most of the power.
Yeah.
So you could have that sitting there just waiting, ready to go. And when it goes, it's fully charged, ready to go, and off it goes. The fascinating thing here is, I imagine in Russia, for example, you've got a huge Ministry of War and you've got some very advanced technicians working on building these incredible drones with beautiful sculptured solar panels built into the arms that are holding the propellers out there. But no, they're just going to basic home hardware, do-it-yourself type places.
Isn't
and they're
that amazing?
buying basic solar panels and hooking it up to basically have a little charging circuit on there, and off they go. So they're not actually as good as a normal drone because they're not quite so aerodynamic, but they're just using do-it-yourself tools. They're not paying much for these drones, and off they go. So they're very convenient, very good to fly, but they're just basic drones.
Well, I wonder, once the design sort of comes in, these, as you're saying, sometimes the build is a bit ad hoc, but as the design improves, warfare is an amazing accelerator for technology. As each side tries to get the upper hand, we're seeing the face of warfare changing. But I wonder what other applications will be in peacetime where you need a drone just sitting and waiting. Before you need to bring it to life.
Yep.
So you can send it out there, let it gather up some energy through the solar cells, and then off it goes to do its job when it's time.
Yeah, and maybe, I know I've talked to people before that have done power line inspections, for example. They've actually been employed to go along and inspect power lines, make sure they're in place, make sure the power poles are all upright, etc. And I thought, well, maybe that would be a good use for a drone that was solar powered. You could say, well, I need this 100 kilometres of power lines inspected, but there's no way that drone's going to fly that distance. So you go out there and do your job one day and then maybe charge up the next and maybe charge up for a couple of days and then go along and fly a bit further so it can be left out there in the field and do that sort of thing. So I think you're right. There might be lots of good uses because we'd rather see them used for good rather than
just throwing it out there. In those big stations, in the Northern Territory and Western Australia and Queensland and whatnot, whether or not you've got a whole bunch of drones sort of stationed around, whether or not there's cattle herding opportunities there, you get some stray cattle, this drone comes to life and shepherds them back to where you want them to be, or whether or not it's, spotting foxes out or other feral animals out in the wilderness there, whatnot. Whether or not there are applications in peacetime for solar-powered drones just to sit dormant for a little while and then come to life as you need them to.
And we always have this thing with drones, don't we? We think, we've got to fly around and come back to where we are. So go out, do your job, come back, we'll charge you up and go again. Yeah. And, of course, you've got that constant battle. Let's put more battery power in. Oh, no, that's more weight. Yep. Therefore, we need more power to pull up that weight. Oh, we're going to use up our batteries quicker. Let's put more batteries in, and you keep going around the recursive loop. Whereas if you just said, we've got a certain amount of battery power, it can only fly for 20 minutes, and then it sits down for a day. Has a rest. Yeah. Get some charge. Go do it again tomorrow. So off you go. So a whole range of things. I hope that we find some great uses for it rather than sitting there and ready to ambush.
Now here's a term for you. It's artificial olfaction, robotic smell sense. One of those technologies that you or I may have thought about once or twice in the past and then promptly turned our noses to the sky, if you'll pardon the pun. But this is nothing to be sniffed at. Artificial olfactories may be saving lives very soon, Matt.
Did you get another couple of puns in there?
Why not? Lowest form of humour, so they say.
So I've often been intrigued by humans our ability to smell compared to dogs and their ability to smell. And there's a few reasons for that. So we've got about 6 million olfactory receptors compared to a dog, and there's different dogs, different breeds, but the good sniffer dogs are about 300 million olfactory receptors. So they've got a huge advantage straight away, but it also comes down to surface area. The surface area of the area for those olfactory receptors is about 30 times larger on a dog than it is on a human. And you look at a dog's nose, you go, well, where's the surface area on that? But they have these very clever folds of tissue. I think turbinates is the word, where they have these folds of tissue over where all those different receptors are sitting. So dogs are very clever at smelling, and they've actually got a larger proportion of their brain dedicated to smell and memory of smell than we have. I'm not saying they've got a larger brain, although some dogs have larger brains than some humans, I know, but certainly the amount dedicated to smelling. So dogs are great.
Yeah, and look, we've got cousins called the Neanderthals that are no longer with us anymore, unfortunately, but apparently, looking at their skulls, they had noses that they suggest were better smellers, much better smellers, but I'm not quite sure they had the brain that was able to deal with that.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. But anyway, look, our cousins had big noses.
And we probably didn't get to the stage where we need the smell as much because we've got vision and we've got intelligence and we can work out things a bit differently. But dogs are used for a whole range of things, and I think of dogs at airports sniffing through various bags, but they're used to do things like detect prostate cancer in urine, and apparently that's better than a PSA blood test, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
So they're used for a whole range of things. The biggest problem with dogs being used to smell various things, whether they be drug test dogs or whatever, is that dogs are expensive and they're hard to scale. So you're paying about $38,000 by the time a dog is ready to go and sniff whatever, whether it be cancer, whether it be drugs. It's an expensive and long process. So if we can come up with something where we can actually replicate that, and of course everyone thinks of smell-o-vision when TV was going to have smell built into it, but some device, whether it be a robot, a drone, something that can have the ability to smell as well as a dog, then we can manufacture that. That's going to be better for a whole range of things and a whole bunch of things.
When
that
you
we can
break down
smell.
what smell is, the molecule needs to dissolve itself in a moist sort of membrane and then transfuse itself send a message to something that sits underneath that membrane, a nerve that is in there. So we got chemoreceptors underneath their skin cells inside your nose. For them to detect those sorts of things and then to replicate that. I think that's the most amazing thing.
That is. And there have been some that have tried to replicate it by using some of the actual tissues out of a dog's nose.
Oh,
so
right,
they've
okay.
actually said, well, why try and replicate it? Let's just steal it off a dog and use that. They haven't been that successful.
Oh, right.
There's an estimation that out of all those 6 million olfactory receptors in a human, we can smell approximately 1 trillion distinct odours. Now, I'm not sure I could name a trillion, but apparently that's the sort of...
Give me a pen and paper.
We'll
start now. We'll start with bananas.
There's a lot in there, and for us to be able to handle those different smells, it's a combination, as you say. You've got these receptors who are receiving these different molecules, but then the combination of those molecules is where you get those different smells from.
Right.
So you've had a few projects. DARPA had an artificial nose project called Dog's Nose back in 1997. Didn't go so well. Then you had a project called Real Nose, which is the one that used real tissues from a dog, and that didn't go so well. But this latest one is called Nano Nose. And so they're basically embedding olfactory receptors onto circuit boards. Now, in lab conditions at this stage, they can essentially detect different odours to almost the same level as a dog, but in terms of the concentration levels that are there. So it's all about trying to get to the stage where you could then connect that to some device and say, let's go. So you might put it onto a drone, for example, and send it down a mine shaft, or you might put it around an airport and fly around and try and sniff out drugs that are there. But health, I think where they're really going to score here is health.
This is the thing that blows me away.
When you get to the stage where you can say, let's actually put that into our smartphone and monitor our health with our breath, monitor our health with our natural odours that come off us, monitor our health with urine tests and smell our urine, that's when it becomes quite incredible.
This reminds me of a story of a lady, I think she was an Adelaide lady, and she could smell Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
Did you hear about this?
No, I haven't.
Dr. Carr was talking about it once as well, I can remember. But, yeah, no, so they even put it to a scientific double-blind test even, and she got nearly everyone right. But then after the ones that she got wrong, she picked them as having Alzheimer's, they end up getting Alzheimer's later on.
Wow.
And so if we could find out what it was about her olfactories that could smell Alzheimer's, we could get a heads up and we could maybe do something about that before it hits.
Yeah, wow. So if we can replicate that, if we can get to the stage where we can have a device that we can scale, that we can produce, and then actually be able to smell, quite incredible. But we seem to have been very good at developing things that we can see and things that we can touch and hear. But for some reason, maybe it's just been put in the too hard basket. We haven't really developed that whole smell. Now, the other interesting question is, are they going to produce smells as well? So producing something that can detect smell, great. Yeah. But are they going to have something that produces smell? So you want a banana smoothie? Well, you can't have it, but I'll give you the smell of a banana smoothie. I don't know they're going that far, and that might be where the smell-o-vision comes in. But at this stage, they're just talking about a device to allow you to actually do the same as a dog.
Well, a lot of the smells that we smell are from esters, and so we know how to make those esters in a laboratory, But, it'll be interesting to see where this technology takes us.
Yeah. Bring on the smartphone with smell-o-vision built in.
This next story is one for those who get ultra-competitive with their neighbours right around the Halloween season. Ultra Skelly is the next level must-have Halloween decoration that'll make your place the talk of the tour. It's pretty much fully customisable with sounds and lights and movement, all Bluetooth straight to your phone. Get ready for Fright Night at the Dickerson household, folks.
It does sound like fun, doesn't it? So it's something that I'm not a big fan of Aussies getting to Halloween. I know Americans love Halloween, not trying to take that away from them, but I do love some of the things they do. And I remember seeing Skelly a few years ago, came out in about 2020. It was a 12-foot high skeleton that you then would rig up outside your house somewhere and scare kids, and people come trick-or-treating, you just send them away with a heart attack, presumably. And they've come up now with Ultra Skelly, and I've actually tried to order Ultra Skelly because I just thought it'd be cool to have it here, and I haven't been able to find anywhere online that will ship it to Australia because it's Home Depot in America that's selling it, and they don't do online orders to Australia. But I thought I'd find somewhere that would sell me Ultra Skelly. But I just thought the concept, it's one of those things that, what are you doing that for? Because we can, and that's fine. So Ultra Skelly is a bit more sensible in terms of size, about 6.5 feet tall, or 1.96 metres if you like in metric. And essentially it gives you the ability to customise the rib cage with lights, mouth lights, full spectrum of colour, and the eyeballs, 18 different LCD eye styles. So you've got skulls, you've got hearts, you've got snowflakes, you've got confetti, and then you've got movement. Head, mouth, arm, torso, some preset recordings in there.
Amazing.
But also you can custom record something as well. So I just think it'd be fun to have around the home anyway, just throughout the year. Forget about having it at Halloween. Just someone rings your doorbell and out pops Ultra Skelly and a few lights start going off, and then you decide whether or not that person really wants to be there or not. So
can't wait for Halloween. We just get up this thing that just scares your friends.
Yeah, that's about it. So all controlled by your app. The only downside I thought was it doesn't have Wi-Fi. It only has Bluetooth. So you've got to be fairly close to it. Maybe they do that deliberately. Maybe they don't want people sitting 100 kilometres away scaring people. You've got to be fairly close
and
to
leaving
it.
skeletons behind.
So if that's not enough for you, if a 12-foot and a 6.5-foot skeleton is not enough, you've also got Skelly's dog, a 5-foot tall sitting dog, and you've got a 7-foot version of the same dog, and then Skelly's cat, also 5-foot tall cat. Now, that'd scare you a bit, I reckon, a 5-foot tall cat, because cats rule the world. We all know that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So having a 5-foot version.
You never know what a cat's got out for you planning, so,
right.
yeah.
So it sounds like
5-foot tall cat is going to scare the hell out of me.
That's right. And let's face it, it's what we can do with technology. Why not? Let's have fun with it.
And here's a story for our wearable tech fans. Whoop is a new fitness tracking bracelet that focuses on things like sleep and recovery and stress management. But what is really different is how you'll pay to use this device, Matt.
It's actually not a bad concept where it's screenless, it's AI powered, it focuses on your sleep, recovery, stress, or your stress management. And we've got so many screens already. Do we really need a screen on our watch to track all of these things? And they have made it very low cost, but you pay a monthly or an annual fee to use it, which I don't mind because essentially it's a lower cost to entry, but also you're going to get better management of that on an ongoing basis. So it all started from a Harvard student athlete, who tested this on the Harvard squash team to see whether or not this was reasonable. So you basically put it on somewhere. You put it in your sock or on your sock around your ankle. You put it on your wrist. You even put it, if you're female, put it in your sports bra. So it just has to be somewhere on there. And what I did like about it is that it samples your biometrics 100 times per second. So you get this really detailed real-time health analysis. I actually tried to find one day how often a watch, if you're going for a run, for example, how often a watch samples your location. So if you're running zigzagged or running straight, if your watch is only sampling your location, say, once a second, there's a fair bit that can happen in 1 second if you're running. I couldn't actually find how often your watch samples because I think it's a bit of that guarded secret. You want it to sample more often, but then the battery will go flat quicker. You do less sampling to keep the battery going, but you might miss the distance you're running. So it's all about, from this perspective, just working out how your body is reacting. And then you can ask questions, because it's AI-powered. How can I reduce my strain, for example? How can I do things that will make it better for me? And then you get these various recommendations. You should be resting. This is what you should be doing today. So really trying to manage you overall. So I think we're going to get better and better at this. We're going to be tracking so many things already. This already tracks your heart rate, your respiratory rate, how much sleep you've got. And one of the things they found when they did some of the first testing with the Harvard squash team was that in all the testing and all the analysis they did, the first thing it said was, you guys need more sleep. And I get that because you're students and you're out there, you're studying, you're playing sport, you're going out having fun. Sleep's probably low on the agenda for most students. So giving more sleep, it seemed like an obvious one really, but there's some data to back it up. Gives you a nice colour coding, green, you're ready to exercise again. Yellow, sure, do a bit, but don't go over the top. And red, no, you should have a rest. You should have a rest day. Yeah, hopefully for me, it would show rest day on a regular basis. I've got to do it because Whoop says to do it. Yeah. So the other part that I quite like is that it gives you a Whoop age. So here I am. I might be 20 years of age or 30 years of age, but I've got a Whoop age depending on how fit I am and how good a condition my body's in. And obviously that gives you a bit of a target because everyone wants their Whoop age to be less than their real age. They want to be their actual age. So I just think I think we're scratching the surface at the moment with the wearables that we've got at the moment. We think they're good and we think they're quite advanced, but we'll see so many different ways.
But I think, okay, so I'm a big fan of the lower entry cost. So the unit that you're going to wear is going to cost a lot less. Let's say it costs $40 or $50 or something. I don't know how much this one is. But then the thing that I worry about is if the cost per, month or year is, you name the price, you can end up paying a lot more for that wearable tech than you would have if you just bought a more expensive unit. So you might spend $500 on another watch that does the same thing, but you're not paying anything more after that. Yeah. My worry has been caught out and in the end paying like a fortune in subscriptions.
And there's a good point, and I think the part of that is it might be, so the cost of this might be, say, $25 a month. Yeah. For some people that can't afford the Samsung or the Apple Watch, for example, they might be able to afford $25 a month. So that's a good starting point. But I think the advantage of having the subscription model is that means that organisation is focused on delivering value to you every single month. And as soon as they stop delivering value, you go, I'm cancelling that subscription. It's not doing it for me. You haven't had to pay out a huge amount up front and go, that wasn't very good. You try it out for a month and go, this is hopeless.
Well, I wonder how many people are good at cancelling subscriptions as well.
It depends
how
hard
they make it. Because I'm a shocker for it. Yep. And I go through these credit card bills or whatever and go, I'm still paying for that?
That's right.
I haven't used that for 5 years.
I like the idea of replacing credit cards when their expiry date comes on because you think, well, that's good because that will cancel those ones. Yeah. But now most of the credit card companies or most of the companies – that's right. They automatically go, we think the new expiry date will be 3 years in advance or 4 years in advance. So they just put that in and away it goes. So, maybe it's a good idea to just change credit card companies on a regular basis to cancel all those.
We're counting down the weeks until the end of winter here in regional New South Wales. Oh, boy. And that means summer is on its way. And that means it's ice cream season, girls and boys. And the news keeps getting better and better, folks, because coming out of Japan this summer is non-melting ice cream. Yes, you can eat more and wear less. So much to look forward to this summer, Matt.
It's a first world problem, isn't it? I mean, sure.
It is.
You buy ice cream for the kids. You buy ice cream for yourself. You go on holidays, you just have to have ice cream. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because you're at beaches in Australia on holidays. But the time you get, and my kids are growing up now, but when they were younger, by the time you'd handed the fourth ice cream out to the fourth child, the first one's already got it all down their hands.
That's right. And look, I love an English toffee ice cream, and it just annoys me that I've got to eat it so fast.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got to go hard at it because otherwise you're going to wear it down your forearm
So
to your elbow.
normally, an ice cream is produced by taking a cream sugar mix and basically in a cold drum, and you prevent large ice crystals from forming. Obviously, if you do that normally, it'll just be large ice crystals, not much fun as an ice cream. So you get small ice crystals. But normally, in the process from manufacturing to you actually getting it, there's been maybe a little bit of melting and then reforming, so you get some larger ice crystals, and they're a bit more likely to melt a bit quicker. So you get these different stages of melting in an ice cream. Obviously, someone spent way too much time analysing ice cream melting.
It's important.
But they've now got to the point where they've been trying using different things mixed in there. So there's polyphenols they've been using, so tannic acid, for example, at different rates, so 0.75%, 1.5%, 3%. And what that does is that turns that cream and sugar mix into a bit of a gel-like structure, and you can actually hold it upside down. It won't start dripping. You can cut it with a knife, but it's still, when it gets in your mouth is obviously warmer than the environment, the ambient environment, so it still melts in your mouth, which is what you want.
Yeah.
The problem is that at the moment in their testing, they're finding that if you hold it out for too long and it is a bit warmer, because it can get fairly warm ambient temperatures in Australia, then it starts to get a bit rubbery, and rubbery ice cream doesn't sound like fun, does it? A bit more work to go on this, but it's happening. The research is happening to give us non-melt ice cream. I've often heard people talk about chocolate, for example. Good old-fashioned dairy milk chocolate is great because it sits there at room temperature as a solid, but in your mouth it's just the right temperature to melt into a gooey mixture. So I do like my chocolate, and so that's fantastic. I'm sure that was an accident somewhere, that the melting temperature of chocolate just happened to be the same as your mouth temperature, but that's what they need to aim for with ice cream. Ice cream that can handle being out like chocolate, but then melting in your mouth.
Ice cream has got to have that it's about the texture as well, isn't it? And if your ice cream's like cake or like something else, like chewing gum, that's not going to be ice cream. And
rubbery doesn't sound great.
It's
not the way I would normally describe my ice cream. Give me some of that rubbery ice cream.
So you're telling me we're not quite there yet, or we have got this non-melting ice cream? Are we?
Well, we've got it in the laboratory. Does that help you? So if you want to add some
we haven't got it at the beach yet, have we?
That's right. Unless they move their laboratory to the beach. So it's a bit limited in where you can actually get this at the moment.
Right,
in the laboratory in Japan.
Maybe in the summer of 2026, perhaps?
No, I'd go a bit further than that.
Don't get my hopes up. All right, well, that's all we got for you today, folks. Matt and I have got to make tracks now before the cops show up and things get messy. More on that story once the dust settles. In the meantime, thanks for another cracking tech talk, Matt.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I am going to go and look more at some of these notebooks that are out, because I do need more screen real estate when I travel. So second screen, third screen,
it's got
rollable
you hooked,
screens.
hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I just imagine rolling up. My second screen is almost as big as my notebook, so I have to put it in my notebook bag and then pull out two, but just a rollable one that I shove down on my notebook and then unroll. Why not unroll it and stick it on the wall in the motel room?
Absolutely.
I love the idea.
But tell me, the Rosey the robot, has that got you enticed at all? Are you thinking about Christmas here? Or?
Well, I am, but I do like the idea of it looking a bit more like Rosey. It still looks a bit ugly at the moment. I think it'll scare my friends when they come around. So it's happening. We know every week we're getting 1 week closer.
All right, thank you one and all for tuning into another Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. It's food for your brain, low in sugar and saturated fats, and super high in anabolic smartoids. So soak it up and feel the cleverness growing inside you. I'm your host, James Eddy, wishing you all 7 days of success and contentment in whatever challenges cross your path. We'll catch you back here again next week for another episode, and we will hope to, in the meantime, we'll take care, and we'll see you when we see you.